Hello, everyone. We are the lungs, your body's specialized gas exchange headquarters. We are a pair of large, spongy, air filled organs that occupy almost the entire thoracic chest cavity, sitting on either side of our neighbor, the heart. We are protected by your rib cage and anchored at the bottom by a powerful dome shaped muscle called the diaphragm. In your nursing classes, you will always hear us referred to using the root words pulmo or pneumo, like pulmonary embolism, pneumonia, or pneumothorax. If you see those terms, you know it's about us. Our main purpose in life is simple yet vital. We bring fresh oxygen, O2, into your bloodstream and expel carbon dioxide, CO2, which is the toxic waste gas your cells produce when they make energy. Anatomy, the respiratory tree. To understand how air moves through us, think of our structural blueprint as an upside down tree. Air enters the trunk and travels down into narrower and narrower branches. 1. Macro anatomy. The lobes. We are not perfectly symmetrical because we have to make room for the heart. The right lung. This is the bigger twin. It has 3 lobes, upper, middle, and lower. The left lung. This is the smaller twin because the heart tilts into its space. It only has 2 lobes, upper and lower, and features a small indentation called the cardiac notch. 2. The layers, the pleura. We are wrapped in a slippery, double-layered membrane called the pleural sac. Visceral pleura, the inner layer that sticks directly to our outer surface. Parietal pleura, the outer layer that lines the inside of your chest wall. Pleural cavity, the tiny space between these 2 layers containing a fraction of lubricating pleural fluid. This fluid creates a vacuum and prevents friction so we can slide smoothly against the chest wall as you breathe. 3. The airway branches, the trachea, windpipe, the main trunk of the tree kept open by rigid C-shaped cartilage rings. The bronchi, the trachea splits into the right and left mainstem bronchi. Nursing note, the right mainstem bronchus is wider, shorter, and straighter than the left. If a patient accidentally inhales a foreign object, like a piece of food, or if an endotracheal tube is pushed in too far, it almost always lands in the right lung. The bronchioles. These are the tiny microscopic twigs branching off the bronchi. They are made of smooth muscle, meaning they can constrict, narrow, or dilate, widen in response to chemicals or nervous system signals. The alveoli, the leaves of our tree, these are tiny grape-like clusters of air sacs at the very end of the bronchioles. This is where the magic happens. They are wrapped in a dense web of pulmonary capillaries. The barrier between the air inside the alveolus and the blood inside the capillary is incredibly thin, allowing O2 and CO2 to diffuse across effortlessly. The major functions of the lungs. For your nursing exams, you can break down our responsibilities into 3 main stages: ventilation, diffusion, and acid-base regulation. 1. Ventilation, the mechanical pump. Ventilation is simply the physical movement of air in and out of the lungs. It relies entirely on pressure changes created by your muscles. Inhalation, inspiration. Your brain sends a signal via the phrenic nerve, causing your diaphragm to contract and move downward. Your intercostal muscles pull your ribs up and out. This expands the chest cavity, creating a negative pressure vacuum that sucks air inside. Exhalation, expiration. This is normally a passive process. Your muscles simply relax, the chest cavity shrinks, and our natural elastic recoil squeezes the air back out. 2. Diffusion, gas exchange. Once air fills the alveoli, gas exchange occurs via passive diffusion. Gases naturally move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Oxygen in the alveoli hops onto hemoglobin molecules inside the passing red blood cells. Carbon dioxide dissolved in the blood drops off into the alveoli so you can breathe it out. The role of surfactant. Inside our alveoli, specialized cells secrete a fatty fluid called surfactant. Surfactant reduces surface tension inside the air sacs. Think of it like putting grease on a balloon. It prevents the wet walls of the alveoli from sticking together and collapsing when you breathe out. 3. Managing blood pH, the acid-base buffer. We work hand in hand with the kidneys to keep blood pH between 7.35 and 7.45. In the blood, carbon dioxide, CO2, behaves like an acid. We can change the acidity of the blood within seconds just by altering how fast or deep you breathe. If the blood becomes too acidic, the brain tells us to hyperventilate, breathe fast and deep to blow off excess CO2 acid. If the blood becomes too alkaline, we slow down breathing to hold onto CO2 and lower the pH back to normal. Common lung diseases. When our airways narrow, our alveoli collapse, or fluid fills our air spaces, gas exchange fails. 1. Asthma and COPD, obstructive airway diseases. Asthma, an inflammatory hypersensitivity reaction. When triggered, the smooth muscles around the bronchioles spasm and tighten, bronchoconstriction, and the lining swells and produces thick mucus, trapping air inside. COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Usually caused by long-term smoking, it includes chronic bronchitis, constant inflammation and mucus in the airways, and emphysema, where the delicate walls of the alveoli are permanently destroyed, turning bouncy grape clusters into stiff, useless paper bags that cannot recoil. 2. Pneumonia, infectious fluid buildup. An infection, viral, bacterial, or fungal, that causes inflammation inside the alveoli. What happens? The alveoli fill up with pus, fluid, and white blood cells. This fluid acts like a wall, blocking oxygen from diffusing across into the bloodstream, leading to hypoxia. Image comparing a healthy normal alveolus with a fluid-filled alveolus during pneumonia. 3. Atelectasis, alveolar collapse. This is the collapse of a small number of alveoli, very common in post-operative patients who are taking shallow breaths due to pain. Nursing prevention. This is why nurses force patients to use an incentive spirometer and practice coughing and deep breathing exercises after surgery to force surfactant around and pop those alveoli back open. Critical nursing assessments and concepts. Ventilation versus oxygenation. They are not the same thing. A patient can have a perfect pulse oximeter reading, SpO2 100%, but be hyperventilating, breathing only 4 times a minute due to an opioid overdose, causing dangerous levels of CO2 acid to build up in their blood, respiratory acidosis. Lung sounds auscultation. Crackles, rails. A popping or rattling sound heard when collapsed alveoli snap open or when air forces its way through fluid, common in pneumonia or heart failure. Wheezes, a high-pitched musical whistling sound caused by air squeezing through severely narrowed or constricted airways, classic in asthma. The hypoxic drive. Warning. In healthy individuals, the brain monitors CO2 levels to decide when to take a breath. However, in advanced COPD patients, their CO2 levels are always high, so their brains adapt to rely on low oxygen levels to trigger breathing. If a nurse administers too much supplemental oxygen to an advanced COPD patient, their brain thinks they have plenty of oxygen and may signal the body to stop breathing altogether. Use oxygen cautiously with these patients.